Chapter 19 of Beren and Lúthien. Beren, the wandering outlaw. Barahir and his companions were pursued to the death by the servants of Morgoth, and dwelt in the wilderness as wandering outlaws. Eventually, all were killed except Beren. Beren pursued the orcs that had killed his father and was able to retrieve his father's ring. After that, he wandered in the wilderness for about 4 years. He came to the land of Doriath and stumbled upon Luthien as she danced in the grass. Upon seeing her, he was unable to speak as he had fallen under some kind of spell, and Luthien vanished. In the spring, Beren found her again, and this spell of silence was lifted from him. He called to her, naming her Tinúviel. She came to him and loved him, but she slipped away once more, and Beren fell into deep grief. However, after a time she returned to him, placing her hand in his. After that, they spent a lot of time together in secret. Daeron the minstrel also had a thing for Lúthien, and he was jealous that she was hanging out with Beren, this mortal man. So, what do? He went and told her dad about their meetings. As you might guess, Thingol, who wouldn't even allow men into his service, let alone date his daughter, was pretty mad. Lúthien wouldn't tell Thingol anything about Beren until he swore an oath not to harm or imprison him. So, after he agreed, Lúthien led Beren before the throne of Thingol. Beren declared to Thingol that he loved Lúthien and he would like to marry her. Thingol was extremely offended and would have liked to kill him on the spot, but he was unable to because of the oath he made to Lúthien. Thingol, thinking himself quite clever, gave Beren a deal. If you bring me a Silmaril, I will give you permission to marry Lúthien. Melian is sitting there shaking her head, and Beren laughs, accepting this quest and setting off once more. Beren passed through Doriath and sought out Felagund, who felt bound to help him. But Celegorm and Curufin, who had been living with Felagund, were furious to hear that someone else was seeking out a Silmaril, and so they refused to help. Felagund gave the crown of Nargothrond to Orodreth and left with Beren. The companions disguised themselves as orcs and were eventually brought before Sauron. Sauron stripped them of their disguise, but he was unable to learn their names or purpose, so he imprisoned them in a deep pit. Every so often, a werewolf would come and devour one of the companions, but all of them were faithful. Eventually, one by one were slain until only Felagund and Beren remained. At last, Felagund was also killed. Lúthien learned that Beren was held captive by Sauron and decided to run away to help him. She asked Daeron for help, and he once again went straight to her dad and betrayed her. Thingol built a tree house in which to hold Lúthien captive, but she, cleverly, wove a cloak and rope out of her own hair and escaped. Huan, the great hound of Valinor, found Lúthien and brought her to Celegorm and Curufin. Lúthien asked them for help. Once again she is betrayed, and instead they schemed to force Thingol to give her in marriage to Celegorm. However, Huan was pure of heart and loved Lúthien, so he helped her escape. In the hour of Felagund's death, Lúthien came to Sauron's Isle. Sauron recognized the voice of Lúthien and was eager to capture her and bring her to Morgoth for a reward. Sauron sent out wolves, but Huan slayed them one by one, until Sauron himself came as a great werewolf. Huan held Wolf Sauron, and Sauron was unable to escape without forsaking his body entirely, which he wanted to avoid because it would have been humiliating to have to return to Morgoth without it. Lúthien demanded Sauron yield the mastery of his tower and isle, and he agreed. Then he shapeshifted into a vampire and fled away. Lúthien found Beren, and they buried Felagund together. Beren was resolved to take Lúthien back to Doriath and finish his quest, but she was unwilling to be parted from him. Huan returned to Celegorm, and there was tumult in Nargothrond as the people grieved the loss of Felagund. They suspected, also, that Celegorm and Curufin were responsible for some kind of treachery, and they were right. Celegorm and Curufin left Nargothrond disgraced. However, Celebrimbor, the son of Curufin, remained. In the forest of Brethil, Celegorm and Curufin came upon Beren and Luthien and tried to kill him. However, Luthien used her powers to heal him. Once again, after this, Beren tried to leave Luthien behind, but Huan and Luthien pursued him, and after this, Beren finally understood that he could not dissuade Luthien, and he agreed that she will come with him. Beren and Luthien disguised themselves in the raiment of two of Sauron's servants, putting on the wolf-hame of Draugluin and the bat-fell of Thuringwetho, and came to the gates of Angband. Carcharoth, the hound of Morgoth, was set before the doors of Angband. Luthien commanded him to sleep, and it worked, and they were able to walk right past him. Together they came before the throne of Morgoth, but Beren, who was still disguised as a wolf, lay before the throne. Luthien was stripped of her disguise, but was not daunted. Luthien began to sing a song which lulled everyone in Morgoth's court to sleep, and when she cast her cloak before Morgoth's eyes, he fell to the ground, and the iron crown rolled from his head. Beren drew Angrist, the dagger he had brought with him for this quest, and cut one of the Silmarils from the crown. Beren tried to free a second Silmaril, but the knife snapped because that was not his fate, and a shard smote the cheek of Morgoth. This they fled. Carcharoth met them at the gate, and he bit Beren's hand off as it held the Silmaril. The Silmaril burned the hound from the inside, and he went forth in rage and madness, killing anything that crossed his path. The great eagles came and carried Beren and Luthien away just as the forces of Morgoth were awakening. After Beren was healed from this, he and Luthien returned to Doriath and came before the throne of Thingol. Tolkien writes, "But Beren knelt before him and said, 'I return according to my word. I am come now to claim my own.' And Thingol answered, 'What of your quest and of your vow?' But Beren said, 'It is fulfilled. Even now a Silmaril is in my hand.' After this, Beren showed that his right hand was gone, which softened Thingol's mood. So he's got a Silmaril in his hand, but the only problem is he doesn't have his hand. Together, they told Thingol about their journey and everything that happened, and Thingol finally agreed to allow them to marry. However, they still had to deal with the problem of the feral Carcharoth who was on the loose, so they prepared to hunt him. Huan slew Carcharoth, but also died in doing so, and Beren was mortally wounded after protecting Thingol. As Beren died, Luthien bade him to await her beyond the western sea, and his spirit tarried in the halls of Mondos. Luthien's spirit also faded, and she came to the halls of Mondos, and sang before the throne of Mondos, and he was moved to pity. This had never happened before and will never happen again. Mondos offered Luthien a choice, either to go to Valinor and dwell in the Blessed Realms and be free of all grief, or to return to Middle-earth, taking Beren with her and becoming mortal. Luthien chose mortality. In our next video, we will discuss Chapter 20 of the 5th battle near Neath Arnodiad. This video is a part of our Silmarillion guide series, which offers a quick and easy to understand introduction to the events, characters, and world of the Silmarillion. This guide is also available as a free ebook, which can be downloaded at teawithtolkien.com/shop. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing or telling a friend about Tea with Tolkien.